Nate Pierre in a moment, Sean Salisbury, and boy, do we have a lot to talk about. The game last night with the Rams and the Raiders, the rest of the NFL weekend. I will have some thoughts on the Kings as they begin the second game of a 6-game trip in just a little bit in Cleveland. A couple of players may not be on the floor for that game. We'll go over it in a little bit. But in a moment, Sean Salisbury to talk some football. It is so great every Monday and Friday to be with Sean Salisbury, and he's everywhere. He does so many shows across the country. He does his morning show in Houston. He also had time to get his master's degree that he accomplished at Texas A&M. Sean, congratulations, man. That is one hell of an achievement. I'm proud of you, buddy.
Thank you, Grant. I appreciate it. When I started in January of 2021, I'm like, what the hell are you doing, dude? You got a good career. Why are you going to put yourself through it? I made a promise to my mom and dad in 1986 on my graduation day, which would have been late May, before I headed off to mini camp with the Seattle Seahawks. Both my parents have since passed away. I started it when my mom was alive and now have finished it. And Grant, one thing I'm proud of is trying to keep up just a couple overall 2-year points away from a 4.0. So I really, wow. I put it's not a pat on the back, but I am proud of it because I know how my mom and dad would feel. And I lived up to the promise. I know it's a lot of years later, but got it accomplished. And I'm really grateful for it. And thank you for the compliment.
Was that something that your parents wanted you to achieve, or was that something that you wanted to do and you told your parents you would do it? That's number one. And number two, what was the most challenging aspect of going back to school, doing this type of a degree at this stage in your life? What was the biggest challenge for you?
That's a great point. The first part is my dad, it was a blue-collar guy, a plasterer by trade, construction. My mom was a hairdresser, cake decorator, and she designed and flower. She'd do lobbies of hotels and all that, and a very gifted woman. But we were a paycheck to paycheck family. And so my dad and mom always said, whatever you do, we want better for you. And I'm sure a lot of families, and we did for us, but it's not, they never pushed it, but they always encouraged me to create options for myself so you could eliminate competition. You're never going to eliminate it all, but yeah. And my dad always said, well, what's going to separate? And no matter how good you are at your sport, you're going to be in your mid-30s at the most when you're done. And regardless of what you want to do, that can never hurt. And when I told them that, they beamed because neither one of them were college graduates. And they earned a living and were phenomenal. And my mom and dad taught me, and my dad in particular, how to work. And so doing all this stuff, the work part wasn't a problem for me, Grant, because I don't need much sleep. And my dad, it's just in the DNA. You know what I'm talking about. Heck, you were raised by a great family as well. So it wasn't that they tapped me on the show, say after this. And Grant, there are times, I mean, I did well at SC, but you know how it is. There are times that you say, I partied too hard on Thursday night and didn't take the test that I wanted to, made a B on it, and I should have. And I could have milked more out of college. I mean, on the focus end, and, when you're 18 years old, right?
Right.
But after all these years, you say, you know what, I'm going to go back and I'm even going to be a better student now than I was then. And what are the challenges? The second part of it was that it wasn't the academics and the knowledge, because I'm an avid reader and I've been in the business world for so long. You have a bit of an advantage in it was kinesiology and sport management. So That part, I probably could have, I don't mean it arrogant, I probably could have taught the classes that I was in simply because I'd seen marketing and sales and sponsorships, all the things you do when you're in a sport marketing major in kinesiology. That the hardest part was technology, Grant. That was the hardest because, back in when we were doing, on the overhead projector stuff, right? Now all of it's PowerPoint. The first time I got a PowerPoint, I'm scrambling around. I called up my 2 sons and my daughter saying, man, somebody got to help me with this because I need to know how to put these slides and do all this. And the technology was the hardest part. And with all the stuff I do, just the time it takes, because in a master's program in advanced education, the assignments count for a lot. And the AP, you know what else, Grant? You know what it's like when you have to cite everything in APA and in a master's program. If you miss a comma on somebody where there's a quote and how to use seventh the seventh edition of APA style citing, I'm like, I'm too old for this, but I managed it and it went well. And I know my mom and dad would be proud, and
Oh boy.
I'm never going to do with it, but I'm going to have a piece of paper frame that says I graduated with a master's degree from Texas A&M.
Yeah, you should be very proud too. Congratulations again. That
all
is
that great
freaking
support.
awesome.
Appreciate it.
Sean, you played in the NFL. You played the quarterback position. Put in the perspective for me and everyone else how unbelievable that was what Baker Mayfield did last night with under 2 minutes left.
Oh, it's phenomenal, Grant. And now some people probably have the thought that, well, they put in a whole offense in 2 days. No, that didn't happen. Now, one thing we do know with Sean McVay bringing him here, he knows what Baker Mayfield's strengths were going in, Grant. So when you're putting a condensed game plan in, whether it's here's our hand signal for this, if you're like it's a slant, and simplifying it for him. So it's not even the execution, it's getting in and out of the huddle. You got your teammates so you can get the play called properly, but it is difficult. I've always said a veteran has a much better chance. Grant, I've been training these quarterbacks, and I'll tell you the comparison that makes it easy for people to visualize is when you watch quarterbacks, a lot of them don't know how to watch tape. They're young high school. They're watching the other team's quarterback when they're supposed to be watching the defense on tape that they're getting ready to play. And then you teach them how, and they start to learn how to watch tape and what they're looking for preparing for a game. With a veteran quarterback, I've always believed that he should know how to study and prepare quicker in a new offense than a young guy because he knows verbiage a little bit better and what an R and an L and the word yellow and green mean on check with me's, all these things. So to me, going in with 48 hours, like when a guy's hurt and he's got to get treatment 10 hours a day, that's what he did to get ready for this game. I mean, bring him in and you're starting, dude. But it's the execution, Grant. You know what happens in that? You kind of settle your mind down because you think, well, nobody has expectations. And you react and be a player like he's done when he was a walk-on. And like when I was sick in a game, Grant, whenever I've been sick, for some reason, your mind settles down and you seem to play better because you're more relaxed. Going into this short time, he really didn't have much chance to think, well, man, it's a Ray. You're just going and playing. And you add a little schoolyard to it as long as you can get out of the huddle. And then they made it easy on him on the last drive. But you have to be proud of how quickly he was able to get him to the line of scrimmage and play. It was a great veteran move and did nothing but heighten his, hey, there's a new pulse and energy that Baker Mayfield's creating. Let's see if he can sustain it. It was impressive.
All right, that final drive defensively was pathetic. And Patrick Graham, I would have fired the guy walking off the field. I really mean that. I'm not exaggerating. What happened on that last drive, the 15-yard penalty for knocking the ball out of Baker's hands, really cost them the game. There's no way they would. I mean, it's mind-boggling. But press coverage in that situation on the touchdown, I mean, that's one-on-one coverage in that situation on press coverage. I mean, I'm sorry, but I don't understand some of the things that I see every week in the NFL. It blows my mind, Sean. These are supposed to be the best of the best of the best.
It's called choking, and quite frankly, they're not the best. In some situations, they're the buddy of the guy who's the best, and you bring him in because he's your buddy. I'm not saying in that case, but a lot of times it's the who you know, not, man, do you know more than the next guy? Grant, I am with you. First off, the reason the Raiders lose is doing just what you said, free 15 yards. They beat themselves up all the time.
All the time.
They do it. They open up. Listen, in professional sports, when you give pros enough chances and open it up, they're going to destroy you. And then, listen, the last thing I want to do is play a single high safety with press man because you know what this does? It takes the decision-making process out of Baker Mayfield's hands. He's like, damn, if they drop in zone, I got to make sure they catch and I got to go through my progressions. Here it's like you walk up to the line of scrimmage, and they're playing press man. A guy gets a free release. Now, the throw was phenomenal, but they made it easy on him to make the throw. So to me, I don't know what goes through coaches' minds in those situations that you say, what's the risk or reward? And the risk on that coverage is so much bigger than the reward, and it cost him. Maybe you didn't expect Baker to make the throw, but if you're going to play press man and you don't get to the quarterback, the decision's easy. And Baker made a great throw. The Raiders find ways to lose.
That's right.
And last three, they've played well, but they rarely prove to you on a consistent basis that they can find ways to win in games like that. It was dumb all the way around. You can't let a guy who's played 2 days with this team on the practice field barely go 98 yards and beat you with soft coverage and then press man him where he destroys you with the fade route.
Sean, I did a podcast on this today. I looked at the last 20 years of the Raiders, only 2 decent regular season performances and 2 playoffs. They lost both of them. Last year, we thought that this team had taken a big step forward when Bisaccia replaced John Gruden. They made the playoffs. They almost beat Cincinnati. And then we talked about bringing in Josh McDaniels or bringing in Devontae Adams, and you would think, wow, everything's going to move up a notch, and they have fallen back down. How frustrating must it be for you and others that root for this franchise that over a long period of time, there does not seem to be this franchise moving forward? It's frustrating as hell, is it not?
Yeah, and I don't get it, Grant. I don't know why. There's some good players. There's some good players. So what does it tell you that if you've got good players, or at least perceive, I know Devontae can play, Josh Jacobs, but I'm going to go back to it. You didn't get to this by being dumb. These coaches, they know X's and O's, but there's a difference between knowing X's and O's, and we talk about players. Some guys, when the pressure's on, know how to execute as a player. Some guys don't. And the Raiders don't have enough of guys that know how to execute. The Raiders for years have been a team that's gotten penalties, beat themselves, but they've always had guys back in the old school Raider days that could overcome it. Matter of fact, that was part of their MO to send a message. Now they just absolutely beat themselves regularly, and there's not enough good players consistently to overcome it. But just like players, Grant, coaches choke under pressure. As we see it all every week on some team, a coach does something, you scratch your head. So then you go, okay, where's the leadership been? Well, this guy we felt was a good leader. Maybe Bisaccia knew something the rest of us. Jack Del Rio, I know, is a leader, had him at 12-4, and it was up there, and they ran him out for Gruden. There has been no continuity. Look at the teams that have continuity, Grant. Pittsburgh Steelers over the years. Ownership, front office, coach, quarterback. Patriots, ownership, front office, coach, quarterback. The 49ers over the years, boom, 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 boom. Look what the Chiefs are doing, boom, boom, boom. Buffalo's created that now. And look at the teams that haven't for the years. Miami was that. Cleveland Browns that. Look at the Bengals now. You bring in a coach who's got an idea. You spend more on your scouting staff. You draft Joe Burrow. You go get Jamar Chase. The narrative's changed. They're a dangerous team. So the Raiders just don't seem to be able to hit it. It's where's Waldo, man? 1 week this guy's okay, then I can't find him for 3. And it is frustrating because I bleed silver and black, but I know going in at some point, they are going to put their own selves in a bind, and it's going to be self-inflicted. And it happened again last night.
49ers, no Garoppolo, Purdy now the quarterback. Would you eliminate them from a Super Bowl contender or not just yet?
I'm not eliminating yet till I talked to Brock Purdy's private trainer, his coach today, Grant. And I talk to him every week for the most part, but he said, Sean, he's made up for this because he's far more mature beyond his years. He's a bright guy and he's competitive as hell. He doesn't want you to scale back. He wants you to attack. And I said all week long that I hope Kyle told him, we're not waiting around. We're not going to sit here and have you play scared. We are going to cut it loose when it's there. You let it rip. You got great players around you. You don't have to be a hero, but I'm not telling you just to don't lose it for us. I'm not putting that in his head. What I'm putting in his head is you're going to have to make a throw against Brady this week that is under duress. You're going to have to make a throw in the playoffs, and you're also going to have to overcome an interception. And I think that's one thing that the guy I talked to, and in watching him, he says he's tough-minded enough to go through stretches where he's struggling, and I like it. So I'm reserving judgment. The defense, they are really good. He's got some Jimmy Garoppolo features, same way of ball comes out pretty quick. They'll run the slants. He can get on the edge with some boots even better than Jimmy. I'm going to reserve judgment on if they're a Super Bowl team or not until I let the guy, let him, his body stay warm for a minute and play 2 or 3 games. He deserves that. But think about it, Grant. He was battling for a job 4 months ago. He's now on one of the best teams in the league, and they're counting on him to make throws and throw it 25 to 30 times a game and get him in and out of the right plays. I can't wait to see it. He's going to be tested this week by Todd Bowles and his defense. I'm looking forward to seeing how pretty – hey, we've seen heroes, guys have come around and you're like, wow, what did we just discover? He does not have to be a hero, but he is going to have to make throws. I'm anxious to see how he does in those moments. I'm not done with those guys yet.
There's nothing that I've seen from Tampa that has impressed me this year, other than, of course, they have Tom Brady, and we saw what he did against the Saints. But the Bucs, to me, I'm sorry, they just don't look like a very good team. I will be surprised, Sean, if they're able to move the ball on this 49ers defense. I know they have Tom Brady, but, they only had 3 points against the Saints until the final minutes of that game.
If you play one-dimensional, now I know he and Burrow get the ball out quicker than anybody in the league, But if the 49ers make them one dimension, Grant, and that dimension's throwing it, and they got to throw it 50 times, I'm just telling you right now that that offensive line cannot hold up. They will, and Bosa hasn't practiced at all this week. But if he's healthy enough to go, because he right now probably, along with Parsons, is the defensive player of the year. And I didn't call him Brock. I hope I didn't call him Brock Osweiler. I think I said Brock Purdy. Hopefully I did.
Yeah, I think you did.
Brock Purdy, yeah, I do too. But he is with the defense and getting after it. The over-under is 37.5, Grant. They don't think it's going to happen either. I don't – listen, first 1 to 3 touchdowns probably wins the game.
Oh, yes, I think so.
17-14, 17-13. Yeah, I don't see how they're going to move it either. But I will tell you this, Grant, and you maybe you disagree. If and when they get to the playoffs, and let's just say I told you they're playing the Cowboys in the first round, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they end up 10-7. They get in at 10-7 or even 9-8, and they're in the playoffs. Who are you picking?
Well, if you're talking to me about a matchup with the Cowboys, I'm sorry. Dak Prescott has to prove to me that he can do it in the big game. I'd still take Tampa Bay.
Brady.
I'm still taking Tampa because of the quarterback.
Which makes them, oh, hell, here we go again, right? Brady's in it.
Yep.
So when he crosses that threshold into the playoffs, all bets are off from the regular season for me. But you're right. If put it this way, if they're able to score 3 touchdowns or more in this game, that will tell you that Tampa Bay Buccaneers are starting to creep back. Even with their record at 6-6, they're starting to creep back into something that it will be dangerous in January if that's the case.
All right, now we're going to look at Miami. They're on this monster road trip. Niners last week, Chargers this week, at Buffalo next week. When you don't have your starting tackles, and we saw that against San Francisco, that's a big problem. Is that the whole key for Miami right now?
Keep the quarterback upright, and because I think McDaniel's going to play aggressive as hell. I don't trust Brandon Staley and the Chargers, Grant. I don't know if you do. You know how you talked about not trusting? You talk about, Dak and the Cowboys or where your trust factor is. I feel like the Vikings, people's feeling about the Vikings is similar feeling that people have about the Chargers. Because at some point I feel like they're going to call something that puts them in a bind. You got a brilliant mind on offense, McDaniel, and Staley, who's been a good defensive coach, both from the same tree of coaches. So they know each other well again. And it's, you're playing, went back to Miami, you're playing another coming back out here, back-to-back trips to the West Coast. I like Miami in the game as long as you sew up the edge and do not let your quarterback get hit. The ball will come out on time. The Chargers got to prove to me that they can put together a string of wins that are consistent and that they don't beat themselves, and that there's another team. Sometimes I wonder, are you going to run it this week? Are you going to make Herbert make every play? Mike McDaniel have a plan for them. I actually like the Dolphins going on the road, even though 2 long road trips back-to-back can be difficult. I think they feel like they should have won last week, but the 2 interceptions and lack of protection, the protection will get a little easier because it's not the 49ers, but going on the road will be tough. Just don't let Herbert have an out-of-body experience. And I think the Miami Dolphins can win. I trust them more than I do the Chargers.
A team that you and I never talk about unless it's Thanksgiving are the Detroit Lions, and they're actually favored against the Vikings this week. Go figure it out. What have you seen in the turnaround of that team and in Jared Goff?
I'm so glad that the Detroit Lions front office allowed Dan Campbell to start working through this. I really and I'm not even talking about playing hard, Grant. I'm talking about playing smarter and an energy that they feels like there's a buy-in we always talk about, that there's a different energy for them. And I'm telling you, when he's throwing it like this, that's why Jared Goff was the first pick of the draft when he was drafted. And it feels like he's got they can score on anybody. They will, and you can bet your sweet ass with the way the Vikings play that this is going to be a 1-score game. The Vikings do it every week, every friggin' week. If I had $5,000 I was betting this week in Detroit, I would take Detroit as well, just from what listen, the Vikings win games, and I love how battle-tested they are. But this is a dangerous – Detroit almost beat them the last time they played.
That's right.
So this is a dangerous game, and I love the way they're throwing. As long as they can run it. The Vikings defense is given way too much, Grant. They're giving way too much. The thing that saved them last week is obviously the goal line stand, but they were 1 for 6 in the red zone, the opponent last week.
Yep.
1 for 6, the
right.
Jets. 1 for 6 in the red zone. good teams ain't going 1 for 6 in the red zone, but the Vikings are finding ways to win, which I give credit. They're learning how to win in tough games, which if you've never been there, you don't know how to win in them. So they're getting experience doing it. But I'm going to tell you right now, you're not going in for a bye week. The Detroit Lions, there's a reason Vegas is doing this. Detroit's playing as well. I mean, they're playing as explosive and fast as anybody right now.
Yeah, speaking of the red zone, I mean, 2 of those drives were right at the end of the game. You know,
Right.
the Jets were
Exactly right.
knocking on the door, and they needed one play, and Mike White and the Jets offense couldn't come up with it. Now the
One
Jets
at the
have the Bills
19,
this
one
week.
at the 1, right, Grant?
Yeah,
From
yeah,
the
that's right.
19-yard
One
line
at the
to
1
1-yard
That's
line.
right. That's right.
Yep.
And now the Jets have the Bills, and the Bills and the Dolphins seem to me to be going right down to the wire. That game next week obviously could decide the division. First things first this week. But are you seeing enough in the Bills right now that they're that team again, or how did the middle part of this schedule and Josh Allen's play kind of go, and now no Von Miller? That's a big loss for them, knowing that you now will not have Von Miller in the postseason. That's huge.
Yeah, we can't poo-poo this away saying, oh, they'll overcome it because Josh Allen. Well, Allen, now you're putting even more onus, dude. You can't make mistakes in the red zone. We know how great a talent you are, but the games are close enough in the playoffs. Those end up costing you, right? So I'm not concerned about them being a dangerous threat and still being a Super Bowl threat, but how many injuries can you overcome on a defense before? And Miami can score as well, you know, and they're playing and they know the severity of it. You go ahead and stub your toe, Miami's going to win the division. So they've got Leslie Frazier, the defensive coordinator of Buffalo. What you have to do this week is you have got that front 7 has got to dominate the football game. You have and you're by doing that without Von Miller, you're going to have to manipulate and dial up some pressures to do it. And your 2 of your starting guys on the back end are not playing this year. They're out now with Hyde and White, as I've mentioned. So Von Miller is going to be is going to be the most underrated loss from week 11 on or whatever it is. That guy knows how to ramp it up too. The Bills. I'm not ready to tell you the Bills are going to win the division right now. I think it's going to be this weekend's a huge one, but Buffalo overall is the more with the quarterback. They're more dangerous. But look at tell me the Dolphins can't match weapons against everybody offensively, but Grant, they also got to run the ball a little more effectively, meaning Miami, and Josh Allen's got to prevent throwing the ball to the other team in the red zone. I think they're a dangerous team, Buffalo, but they are no longer unbeatable like we thought they'd be at the beginning of the year.
Shaw, you played in one of the great rivalries in college football, USC and Notre Dame. Every year I try to watch the Army-Navy game, and I couldn't name one player on either team. I think it's one of the most amazing spectacles that I've seen as a football guy and as somebody that knows all about big-time rivalries. When you watch that game, what's that like for you?
There hasn't been a game over the last since I've known what that rivalry meant. My dad's 82nd Airborne in the Army. I go Army, beat Navy, yet I love Navy and what they go about. I just love I love knowing that when this game's over, those guys got to go back and think about stuff far bigger than a football game, yet they're going to play their ass off and how much it means and the pride. I love when it's cold, like in Philly, Grant, you see in the stands, you know, the midshipmen and the cadets. I just friggin' love it. I do. What I do, and every time the national anthem's played and I watch the way that these fans and the reverence in which people broadcast and hold this game, I still get, I know it sounds cheesy, but I still get a little bit of the emotion thinking about, because it's a much bigger picture. When they go there, their commitment's far deeper, and all the stuff they got to do during the week and still to get themselves prepared to be here. I love the game, and I set my watch by it, and it's the only show in town this Saturday. So, meaning the one on TV, you watch it because respect for each other and respect for what these kids are doing. I friggin' love it. And I think because they're not dominating in the national title picture, but this is truly, if you want the rivalry, this is as good as it gets, especially when it's played in Philadelphia.
I love when athletes bet on themselves and win. Aaron Judge bet on himself and he won. I don't think it's a good deal for the Yankees, Sean. I'm in the minority. I don't. But with that said, you got to love when an athlete says, okay, no problem. I'll go out and prove my worth. Boy, did he ever.
And doesn't talk about it the whole year.
Nope.
Just keeps playing bad. Dude, I love the guy. And you're right. Grant, I'm just not in the business of, I'm not a big 10-year contract type of guy. I'm just
I'm not
9 years.
either.
I'd prefer to pay him $45 million over 6 years or 5 years. I would, but you're worth what you can negotiate. Trey Turner, Xander Bogaerts. We look at the money these guys are getting. God, I don't know where it ends, but if we're going to overpay or do what we do, that guy was worth every penny that the Yankees did, because he's now the captain, which he deserves. He's a face of the organization. He doesn't bother anybody. He just produces, and everybody in each city, it doesn't matter where you go, love him. It's like, gee, the respect and love for him. Yeah, it's exactly what he is, with more power, but the same class and approach to the game. Love him, and I couldn't be happier for him. I mean, God bless him for getting the money. That's a big bag, but you know what? And for 1 second, I didn't think they were going to be able to hold on to him, but you can tell he likes the familiarity and he's comfortable there. And it's an honor to be named captain. What a year it's been for Aaron Judge. You get the C on your chest and you get close to $400 million. Good for him.
Xander Bogaerts, man, your reaction when you saw him leaving?
Well, I hate the fact that the Red Sox, you win, and then we got Mookie Betts gone, and you just keep going out. Say, well, okay, are we replacing? Is Correa coming to Boston? And the answer right now doesn't look like yes, but maybe a long shot. But look what Grant, you talk about money. I can't think about the Padres. Tatis, Machado, Bogaerts, and Soto's going to make $400 million when his time comes. Think about their payroll. I mean, Josh Hader at the back end. They've got they're from Yu Darvish. I don't know how you pay it, but they got money, so they're paying it. But what an up! Can you imagine going through? I hated it that the Red Sox lost Bogaerts, but that's been talked about for the year and a half, right? So they did lose him, but the fact that the Padres were able to jump in and land a guy who's an all-star shortstop, brings power. I don't even know where he's going to hit in the lineup with this entire team, but they are friggin' stacked. And you just added an all-star shortstop as an afterthought. Think about that for what, almost $200 million, Grant, right around in there?
Yep.
Good for them. But I hate it because the core of the Red Sox now, and they don't have great pitching. Now you're making it Devers and let's see what happens from there. They got a lot to do. The Yankees got better, the Red Sox haven't, and the Padres got better. So did the Phillies getting Trey Turner. Maybe not the 11 years, Grant, but what a get for them. They get that bat. Hard to replace. I still think the Dodgers, even though they say they're out because the fans, they're stupid if they don't want Correa. You should jump in if you wanted him. But the San Francisco Giants may end up landing him or back in Minnesota as well.
Sean, one of the things that I've really enjoyed about our friendship and working with you is you have an opinion on everything. And I know I can go in any direction that I want with you. I did a rant on this morning. As an American, I am very grateful that Brittney Griner is out of Russia. All right. I would like the fact that a country would do that for their citizen. Now, you can get political and say, well, gee, there's another individual over there, Marine and Paul Whelan, and he's not there. But I'm just going to say I'm very grateful that she's home. All right. The punishment did not fit the crime. And I don't care whether you're talking about American law, Russian law. It's just it did not happen. Here's what I did a rant on, and this is going to really bother me. Do not make Brittney Griner out to be a hero. She's not a hero, okay? She did a stupid thing. She tried to take an illegal substance, albeit very small, across the border. That's stupidity, all right? I've always talked about this, Sean, because I travel abroad a lot. You always need to know the laws and the culture of where you're going. It's not America, all right? It's a different part of the world. Brittney Griner made a big mistake. She paid for it. She's not a hero. Do not make Brittney Griner a hero. That will bother me, Sean.
Grant, it sounds like, and we haven't talked about this together. It's not like we talked about this before we came on here. I'm American first.
Yep.
And I don't care if you vote Democrat or Republican.
Yep.
We brought somebody who's home that you're exactly right. The punishment didn't fit the crime. It's absurd. But you also have to know that when you're going to Russia, they're a little bit different than crossing into Arizona. Mm-hmm. Okay, you're crossing the border from California into Las Vegas, right? So you got to be that was self-inflicted stupidity that she made that decision. Now, in the landscape we're in, if she was coming here, it's like, come on, man, some hash oil, stop it. But that's Russia. They don't live by the same rules we do, and we know that. So that was a self-inflicted mistake. But the punishment of sentence her to 9 years, I couldn't be more grateful that Brittney Griner's back home. And that we brought her home. And yes, we need to get Mr. Whelan back here. And they don't have to be. while it'd be great if we had them back together, but the negotiations, I don't know the inside of how much, I don't. So it's hard for me to judge. But hell, if I can get one back here that's back home, an American,
Yep.
bring the American back home. And I'm grateful that Brittney Griner, and she should count her blessings, because 9 years would have been hell in that prison over a little bit of hash oil, right? Okay, we know that. But I'm with you. Listen, you're not selling me on the fact. And I think Brittney Griner's probably learned a lesson that on record of hating America. Probably you might want to shift your paradigms a little bit. You could have sat for 9 years in a Russian prison, but you had an American president and people who champion your cause, celebrities and everybody, and got it done. And I would imagine she has a different damn perspective over how much she likes the United States of America, and probably says, you know what? Let me count my blessings, because we live in the greatest friggin' country on the planet, and I get paid here. Her wife is here. She gets a chance to earn a living, all those things. Yes, it was unfortunate, but she's back, safe, sound, lesson learned. Maybe she'll understand loving the country. And there's no, I don't understand how you getting freed by the government. Maybe our government's heroic for bringing you home when you were supposed to stay there for 9 years. To label her a hero,
come on,
it borders on absurdity. There's nothing she didn't. What'd she do heroic other than we got out? She was able to survive being in a Russian prison over something this stupid. I'm sure it was gut wrenching. I'm glad she's home. Awesome to have an American home. Love that. But nobody's ever going to get me to label her a hero. She's blessed and made a mistake, and our country did the right thing getting her back here.
Sean, you're the best. And again, congratulations. I just applaud the hell out of you. And I'm telling you, Sean, you and I are the same generation. I can't imagine right now going back to further my education. And I'm being very honest with you, Sean. I don't think I could do it. I really don't. I think I've been out of the game too long. And I knew you were going to say you could do it. It would take a lot of work, but I don't know if I would have the mental discipline. Okay. I don't know if right at this stage of my life, if mentally I could go do what you do. So I just have so much respect for what you accomplished. I really do.
I'm honored. Your friendship, I don't take it for granted. I sure as hell don't take your compliments lightly. Grant, you know what it was like? Listen to what you say. It would be like going into Green Bay in January without a shirt on and sitting out there for 4 quarters. That's that mentality. Or playing in that weather, you got to find a way to fight through it. Because I felt the same way, like, what the hell are you doing? And then I got into it. And then not only my promise to my mom and dad, then my pride kicked in. I said, screw it. I'm not only doing that, I'm going to make straight A's on this damn thing too, like an idiot, and put all that time in instead of just graduate. But you're right. It was, for me, it was a daunting task, and I'm grateful. Yeah, you could have done it, but it just was a simple mindset and what I wanted to accomplish, because I did not want to let my parents, the promise I made. I try to keep promises, and I've screwed up plenty in my life. This is a promise I try to keep, and I'm grateful I did. And to our listeners and the people that are sending in messages, congratulating me, thank you. I appreciate the support. It was a great task, and I had a lot of support along the way, but I'm glad I did it.
Sean, have a great weekend, buddy. We'll talk to you Monday.
You too. Appreciate you, my man. Thank you.
Appreciate you too. You're the best. That's Sean Salisbury. Really, I just think that's an incredible accomplishment. We are coming to you courtesy of New Works Plumbing of Sacramento. Locally owned for over 20 years, New Works has a fix for you for your plumbing needs and repairs. Just go to sacserviceplumbing.com or call the number on your screen. And remember, if you have an emergency in the middle of the night, no problem. They will be there with their 24/7 service. That's sacserviceplumbing.com. All right, Kings, tonight, no De'Aaron Fox. He's out. Davion Mitchell will start, and no Donovan Mitchell for the Cleveland Cavaliers. He is out. So both teams will be shorthanded. We've talked about Fox struggling. I will be back right here after the game, okay? So join me after the Kings and the Cavs. No Fox, no Mitchell, and we'll see how Mitchell plays. This is a Cavaliers team that has only lost one game on their home floor. To me, Mitchell being out is a bigger loss for Cleveland than Fox being out for the Kings. All right? That's where I'm at. All right. Hit me up with your chat messages. By the way, if you're an idiot on the chat line, I'm not putting your message up. So don't waste your time being an absolute idiot. If you're an idiot, I'm not putting you up. All right? And we know who I'm talking about. I see all the messages. All right? If you're going to be a jerk, You're going to be an ass. You're going to be stupid. You're not coming up on my screen. Others might be able to see you, but I'm not putting you up on the live stream. Okay? Not going to happen. Amazing. And listen, we are talking about this. Bula. Hello to Fiji. Bula. And Davion, we trust. You better hope so. I did a rant on this. Brittney Griner had nothing to do with who got out of an American prison. She wasn't involved in that. She didn't have anything to do with the merchant of death being released for her. All right? I understand what it looks like. I get it. Okay? I understand. But she didn't have anything to do with that. Hello to New York City. Hope you're enjoying the holiday season. I've always thought that New York is the prettiest place to be over the holidays. I love going to New York for the holidays. Bula. I really do. Is there a more incredible place in this country than New York over the holidays? Fox has got a foot injury that he's dealing with. So he is out. All right? I think it's that. All right. If you want to hit me up on the chat line, then do so. All right? I am talking about you. You're exactly right. And you know what? You're an idiot. So do me a favor. Get off my stream. All right? Because you know what? You obviously have a problem. You really do. You're welcome. Absolutely. All right. Again, don't forget that coming up tonight, right after the game, I'll be right back here on YouTube Live. All right. Good question. How many NFL coaches are on the hot seat right now? Several. How many? You know, I'd say at least five. I'd say at least five. That game last night was amazing. The Blazers-Nuggets game, Sea-Dog, you're right. That was an incredible game. I don't know how the Nuggets ended up winning that game, but when I was reading the comments after the game, that was a bad loss for the Blazers. That was a hell of a game. That really was. So again, Kings and Cavs tonight. All right. And you write about this. I want to read this verbatim, so I'll put my glasses on. People need to understand, Grant, that whole thing was political, not to get political, but there were no heroes. There was literally just Russia taking advantage. You're 100% correct, and everybody knows that. You're absolutely correct. It was political. Absolutely. However, she was detained for a reason, albeit in our eyes, a small violation of law, regardless of where you live. I retract that. Every country has their own laws and they're set up differently, but she had to, at first, be arrested for doing something wrong. And then, yes, it obviously became completely political. Yes, I am going to have my show coming up on Listen App in just a little bit, in 20 minutes. So, yes, hope you can join me there. We'll talk more about this. We'll talk about last night's game and the Kings and the Cavaliers. Again, no De'Aaron Fox, Davion Mitchell, and he'll start. And Marina, I've talked about this on multiple occasions, because I travel a lot. And I've always talked about this. When you are going to go to a different country, you need to Google that country's laws and cultures and customs, and you have to understand that. I'll give you an example. When I was in Thailand a year ago, I went to a movie. And before the movie, they put a video up of the King of Thailand. And as soon as the video came up, everybody in the movie theater stood. And I didn't really know what was going on, so I stood. Now, would have anything have happened to me if I had not stood? Probably not. But I was going to pay respect to the culture that I was visiting. Small example. But you better know that what you think is okay in America is not necessarily okay in a different country. All right? And you need to be educated on that. You need to be educated on that. All right, this question about college hoops. I don't get into college hoops, Sea-Dog, until conference play starts. When conference play gets going, then I'll talk college basketball. But to me, college basketball is about the tournament. I know a lot of people feel differently, but even in January when they start conference play, I don't really get into it until the tournament. All right? All right. Again, I understand where you're coming from. Whoop, I put the wrong tweet up. Told you I was going to put his up there. You're exactly right, Grant. When in Rome. You're absolutely right. All right, so here's the deal. Tonight, right after the game, I'll be back here on YouTube Live. I want to also let everybody know that we are brought to you by Foster's and Paws. Great to have them here on all of my shows. They are a group of passionate animal advocates, and they work hard to save lives. They focus primarily on vulnerable dogs in shelters, and they believe also that teaching children at a young age how to treat animals will and I think this is spot on. All right. You treat animals with respect, it will have lifelong benefits, and they do teach children. Bottom line, they hope that everyone that wants an animal can have one in their life, and they're looking for adopters, donors, and fosters. To learn more, just go to fostersandpaws.org. All right. I will be back a little bit later after the Kings and the Cavs. Thanks to Sean Salisbury, and thanks to you for joining me right here on If You Don't Like That with Grant Napier. So